Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. Happy to be with you today. So, we've had Joe Biden, the inauguration, him and Kamala Harris as president and vice president, and executive orders have already started to flow from the executive office, from the Biden administration. Are these executive orders immoral? Are they illegal? Are they ineffective? What is really going on? It's a big question. And considering that it's having an immediate impact on our nation, we need to speak about this. We need to understand this to evaluate whether it's a good thing or a bad thing for America. Now, before we do that, we want to address, if this is the first time that you've come to the program, we do long-form political commentary here. And every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you via YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. As long as the internet overlords allow, we reach out to hear your thoughts, to see what you have to say about the issues affecting us all, whether in the United States or around the world. And we hope to see you this Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, with that said, let's really focus on what's going on with these executive orders. We've heard a lot about what Joe Biden was planning to do. What has Joe Biden done? What is the impact? Now, we did not watch the inauguration because we don't support military juntas. Essentially, that's what we saw. Well over 30,000 members of the United States military and law enforcement presided in a presentation of an individual who was elected with many questions. We did not support that. But we are looking at what is the impact, what is happening with these executive orders. Already 17 have been put forth. Before we get to that, though, we want to ask a question. Is this changing America? Are we seeing an impact from the left, especially from the progressive left, that is a positive for America? And the answer to that, I think, is similar to the opinion that we see in the New York Post, which was published on January 19th. In that, Glenn Reynolds mentions, many years ago, the columnist Megan McArdle postulated a law of politics. Quote, the devotees of the party in power are smug and arrogant. The devotees of the party out of power are insane. It's a pretty accurate statement. Most people would agree with that. But here we go. And we've seen that this was true under Clinton, Bush, Obama, and even President Trump for many years, even before Trump got in. But is that true today? Well, if you're looking at the response from big tech, we're talking about Twitter and Facebook, Google and Amazon. No, they have removed tens of thousands, if not millions of individuals from their collective social media sources. We've seen that, and they've been very bold about that. They censored a sitting president, such that we have seen Germany, India, many states of Poland, many countries have stepped up and said, this is a problem for the world. When any world leader can be arbitrarily silenced, that's not good for the globe. In addition, we saw that when people went to alternatives like Twitter, like Parler, what did we see? That they were punished. Why? Because some people used Parler to communicate with each other, as we saw the Capitol Hill riot take place. But even more of those people were on Facebook, and Facebook is not shut down. So we see from many sources on the left, when it comes to social media, the insanity has gotten to a new level. Well, let's also look at, what about the far left? Let's look at Antifa, Black Lives Matter, that socialist Democrat wing of the Democratic Party. What have they been doing? Well, according to Julio Rosas, who is a former writer for Mediatate, and a senior writer at Town Hall, well, he shows us evidence from last night, that would be the inauguration day, January 20th, in Portland, where we see, we see BLM continuing to have riots, continuing to have protests, continuing to oppose the United States government, and being very clear that they are saying F Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. This is scenes, as Julio mentions, on the ground in Portland on January 20th, Inauguration Day, and a group of Antifa marchers just attacked the city's Democratic Party office. They broke windows, as you can see, and spray painted the building. So Antifa really isn't against President Trump, it would seem. They're not against the Republicans, it would seem. They're against, the United States government, the Constitution, democracy itself. They want to be the only voice to be heard. The insanity continues. We see that in Portland, they were burning the American flag again. Not because it's a Republican in office, not because Republicans control Congress and the presidency. No. Antifa is against America, whether that happens to be run by a Democrat or whether that's run by a conservative. It doesn't matter. Their goal is to silence anyone who does not believe what they believe. It kind of reminds you of what we see in the Middle East with groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS, where any voice and any religious belief outside their own is punished with death. Now, I'm not saying that that's what Antifa does, but we do know they have problems. So the insanity is not getting better. The problem is continuing to exist. That leaves us with the question, are these executive orders by President Biden that are promoted by the news media on the left and by his own party, is this going to heal America? Is this going to unite America? Is this going to calm down the Democratic Socialists of America in Ithaca, in the Antifa, in Portland, and these various cells of hyper-left progressivism? Well, let's take a look at them. Let's get a good understanding. And we're not going to look at each and every single individual executive order that has come out just because of the amount of time, unless people wish us to do that, and then we'll go over each one. But we're going to be looking at a couple of them. But to give you an idea, this comes from CNN Politics, and this was published on January 20th at 8:48 p.m., and we know that there were 17 executive actions on day one. That means there is a mask mandate. It is a requirement. It is not a choice. Freedom of religious or personal beliefs does not exist with President Biden, as he has required that in federal buildings and on federal lands, and anyone working for the government must wear a mask for the next 100 days, regardless of their religious beliefs or anything else. And he is urging other states and local governments to impose that same kind of restriction. So the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that doesn't matter. Even though it's in the Constitution, even though this is in our Declaration of Independence, even though this is a staple of the democratic republic that is America, it's gone. Your freedom of choice no longer exists. Then there's the coronavirus, where we have rejoined the World Health Organization, an organization that actively supported the lies from China about the Wuhan virus, the coronavirus or the COVID-19 virus, however you want to name it, that they supported this, that they supported lockdowns, which we have seen have been proven to be ineffective, and they later reversed their position many times, saying that lockdowns are the worst thing to do. But we've rejoined this organization that has supported lies that cost people their lives. Well, we've also had, in terms of the economy, we see that the pause on evictions and on student loans, that's been pushed back to March 31st. The can has been kicked further down the road. Does that resolve the problem? No. Does it help people to pay that debt off, to bring themselves, to help the landlords and the renters? No. It just pushes the problem down the road. We've seen that he's looking at, and again, student loans also pushed down the road to September 30th. Does that absolve those loans? No. Does it resolve the problem that students are having, which is getting jobs? No. It doesn't actually help anyone. It just pushes it down. How about the environment? He rejoins the Paris Climate Accord, and we're going to get into this. He's stopping the Keystone XL pipeline. We're going to get into that in a moment. He wants to rewrite or stop any corrections about American history, because that's somehow racially insensitive to tell the truth about America's history without having a bias towards progressive ideology or to have gender identity politics centered on that. There's a bunch of issues here. And you know what? YouGov has a poll that just came out January 21st. We've just had it, talking about these 17 executive orders. And what is America saying about this? Where do Americans stand on it? Well, the first question is, Biden launched 100 days of wearing masks, which he doesn't explain what happens if you don't wear the mask. What is the punishment for not wearing the mask? That's a very important question. If Americans choose not to do that, as is their right, then what happens? Well, we can see that 49% of those taking the poll in America, they don't agree. 51% do agree about the 100 days of wearing a mask that we have been doing for a year. But, okay. How about the extension on the foreclosures? 74% of those in the poll so far do agree. Looking at rejoining the Paris Climate Accord, what do Americans think about that? 55% oppose joining the climate accords. That's interesting, and there's a reason for that. But we also go into the Keystone Pipeline. Now, what do we think about that? Americans taking the YouGov poll found that 57% oppose shutting down the XL pipeline. There may be a reason for that. There's President Biden's order preventing workplace discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. And the answer is 69% of people taking the poll support that. How about the fortified and bolstered DACA immigration policy, helping people who are illegal aliens to get all of the rights and benefits and the taxpayer money? Is that a good thing for America? Well, 49% of those taking the poll say no. They disagree with that, although 51% do. President Biden also signed an executive order releasing and opening up the borders of the United States. That also included removing the travel ban started by the Obama administration that he was part of, and it continued and expanded slightly by the Trump administration. And 58% of the people who've taken the poll by the YouGov poll oppose this action of opening up our borders and inviting citizens of war-torn areas to come into America. Now, do you believe there's going to be unity? We do not. But they won't show us the data on what do most people think about that. How many people think that Biden is not trying to bring America together? I think that's an important question, because I don't believe he has offered in his executive orders or in his speeches, unity. He has offered submission, that you are going to do this or else, that he has enabled individuals like social media to go out and to punish people who have a different opinion. And we're seeing this happen. And if this can happen to the President of the United States, it can happen to anyone in the world, other world leaders and other individual citizens, and it is happening to American citizens. So what about the executive orders? And I want to be very specific about which executive orders right now, because I think it shows us an example of whether this is immoral, ineffective, illegal, or just the wrong thing to do. And we're going to look at the executive order on protecting public health and environment and restoring science to tackle the climate crisis. Now, the very first thing to understand about that is to restore science. Science is, I don't understand this. When you say restoring science, let's think about Governor Cuomo. There is no science in saying that businesses have to shut down at 10 p.m. at night because the coronavirus is not active at night. When the sun sets, the coronavirus doesn't become more active. That is not scientific. And yet, in California, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in New York State, we see that those laws exist. There's no science in that. There's no science in saying that you can't go to your local grocery store, but you must go to Walmart, and focusing everyone, tens of thousands of people, into one location, which would create a hot spot of the virus potentially circulating in that recirculated air, rather than having people spread out and having smaller groups not getting concentrated doses. There's no science to that. There's no science in saying that you can wear your scarf, you can wear a homemade mask that is not going to prevent the coronavirus from being transmitted, because the only mask that does that is an N95 or a surgical mask. And the overwhelming majority of Americans, well over 80-90% of them, don't have that quality mask. That's not scientific. So in saying restoring science, that's just immoral because it's a lie. That's not what's being done. And it's ineffective, but it is legal. We're going to jump down past a couple of things here to go to something that's clearly a question, and that's in Section 5, which is Section 5, accounting for the benefits of reducing climate pollution. A, it is essential that agencies capture the full cost of greenhouse gas emissions as accurately as possible, including by taking global damages into account. Full stop. What does that mean? The global damage. Let's be very clear. The United States is the world leader in the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. That is a fact. It is not even in dispute. It is not disputable. It is a fact, a scientific fact. The United States leads the nation. The next closest nation, which is Great Britain, is 1/6 the amount of reduction of greenhouse gases of the United States. All of Europe combined is just below the amount of reduction of greenhouse gases that the United States does by itself. And this is a multi-year fact. And the greatest causes of new greenhouse gas emissions is India and China. And they are responsible for more than 20% of the new greenhouse gas emissions. And they are emitting so much greenhouse gases that they are more than the amount of reduction that is happening in the world. That is also a multi-year fact. It is absolutely true. So how does America, which is not responsible for the new emissions, China and India are, how are we to determine what is the cost of global damage? So when you turn on your car to go to work or to go to the grocery store, how much are you responsible for the greenhouse gas damage to Bolivia when China is creating most of the greenhouse gases in the world? Does that make sense? Does that even compute? Think about that for a second. The problem is coming from China and India, but America has a global damage. That doesn't make any sense. That is not understandable. That is, by its definition, therefore, immoral, because it's based on something that isn't factually true. It's not scientifically true. How about this? Doing so facilitates sound decision-making, recognizes the breadth of climate impacts, and supports the international leadership of the United States on climate issues. But the United States already leads the world. We are already the global leader. Whether or not there is a accounting of our global damage, which is debatable, we already lead the world, and we already are showing the world how to do this. So and he goes on, the social cost of carbon, the social cost of nitrous oxide, and the social cost of methane are estimates of the monetized damages associated with incremental increases in greenhouse gas emissions. Now, this is the problem I have with this. I don't know what the social cost of carbon is. When I eat, when I breathe, you exhale carbon dioxide. So are you supposed to pay a tax based on you breathing? And there are billions of people. The largest cause of carbon dioxide emissions in the world is the fact that 7 billion people breathe. That's the number one cause of that greenhouse gas, of carbon, is from people breathing more than anything else. But let's put that aside. The social cost of methane, the social cost of nitrous oxide, so you're going to get a tax on that? I'm not sure how it's establish what is that cost, and then how do you pay that off? Because it makes no sense. But how are we going to benefit people with this? This is a problem. By its definition and by the way that we are defining the climate pollution and attributing that to America as not as a proportion of the world, but as the problem in the world, that's how you get the Green New Deal. An idea where we're supposed to build a train going from New York to Hawaii. That makes no sense. An idea where we're supposed to rewire and rebuild the electrical grid, which is trillions of dollars and is logistically not possible. But let's go on. Looking at Section 6, revoking the March 2019 permit for the Keystone Pipeline. Now, I understand Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Democratic Socialists, many of the progressives do not like the XL pipeline. And they have many reasons they express why they don't like this. Please understand what this means. The XL pipeline, which is from Canada to the United States, this is supporting our allies. In destroying that, we are making worse relations with our allies in Canada. And Canada, if they do not sell us the oil and gas from the XL pipeline, they will sell it to China. That is a fact. Canada has already said that they will do this. That if the XL pipeline is not functioning, does not exist, they will sell their oil and their gas to China. That will negatively impact America. We're talking about thousands of jobs that will be lost. We're talking about an increase in the cost of gas and gasoline in the United States, and that it will put greater pressure on either importing gas and oil from other parts of the world or using up more of the U.S. reserve, which does not help the United States in either case. This is a problem. Is it legal? Yes. Is it immoral? Yes. And is it ineffective? Yes. We are helping communist China to grow, to continue to pollute the world because they do not clean their oil and gas usage as much as the United States does. In fact, China is the world leader in greenhouse gas emissions. Giving them more oil allows them to do more of that. And this is making our relations with our northern neighbors in Canada worse. And it's depriving the U.S. of money, of resources, of GDP, and it creates more unemployment. All for the ability to say, oh, but we're eco-safe. We're just being really green. The net result of that political statement is actually worse in every respect for the globe and for the United States. Let's look at a different one. Let's look at the Proclamation on ending discriminatory bans on entry into the United States. The ban created by President Obama and then expanded on by President Trump. Biden says, beyond contravening our values, these executive orders and proclamations have undermined our national security. They have jeopardized our global network of alliances and partnerships and are a moral blight that has dulled the power of our example in the world. Our example the world over. They have separated loved ones, inflicting pain that will ripple for years to come. They are just plain wrong. Make no mistake, where there are threats to our nation, we will address them. Where there are opportunities to strengthen information sharing with partners, we will pursue them. And when visa applications request entry to the United States, we will apply a vigorous, individualized vetting system. But we will not turn our backs on our values with discriminatory bans on entry into the United States. So here's the problem. See, he's assuming that the ban that President Obama first put together, a restriction, is based on someone's color of skin. That this is somehow racist, that this is somehow based on people's skin color, rather than to evaluate and say, well, this is because the countries that it identifies and is partially focused on are areas where there are civil wars or active wars ongoing, and that the motivation of those wars is based on religious ideology, that one group, ISIS and Al-Qaeda, are willing to kill anyone and everyone that doesn't believe in believe religion the way they want you to believe religion, and that their proponents, their fighters in ISIS and Al-Qaeda, as examples, are willing to kill women and children and innocent civilians because they don't value their lives. And they have stated repeatedly for years that they have agents, insurgents, hidden inside these refugees, which are 74%, usually 74% filled with men, that they have infiltrated these groups and they are using that to enter into other nations to create cells and to try and disable those other world governments. These are facts. It is not a question. It existed under President Obama. It exists today. These are facts. They have been documented over and over again, New York Times and everyone else. So to say that this is, even though they may be primarily for Muslim and African countries, these are also, more importantly, these are countries in active wars over religion and have stated that terrorism is a means by which they will conduct these wars against the globe. So Biden is using race to justify his actions, whereas national security was the reason why Obama and President Trump made this a fact, and it was supported by the Supreme Court. So to say that there is a moral blight, the moral blight is that you would allow individuals that have promised to infiltrate these refugees to enter the United States to create problems for the United States government and people. There is a moral blight. And we have seen that our allies across the world, in Germany, in Sweden, in Switzerland, in England, in Canada, where they have taken in these refugees, which many of these countries have stopped, but where they have taken them, they have had massive increases in civil disobedience, in attacks on their civilian populations, their native populations. Rapes and violent crimes have skyrocketed. So Joe Biden wants to add more of these problems to the United States because he wants to feel good about saying, yeah, we're going to have an open door policy. We're opening our borders. This doesn't make sense. By definition, by its understanding, it makes no sense. It is actually making America less safe. He is endangering American citizens, which I would consider to be immoral. Although it is not illegal, well, it's partially illegal, but it is absolutely immoral and it is ineffective. It will not make Syria more safe by taking in their refugees. It will not make America more safe by taking in Syrian refugees. It will only add to the potential problems the United States has to face. This is immoral. You know, I want to look at also, and I said he's opening the borders. Well, according to the New York Times, as published on January 20th, the New York Times states that Mr. Biden has also halted construction of President Trump's border wall with Mexico. The order includes a, quote, immediate termination, end quote, of the national emergency declaration that allowed the Trump administration to redirect billions of dollars to the wall. So he is effectively opening the southern border of the United States, where we have seen problems, where we have seen tens of thousands, in fact, millions of individuals trying to illegally enter the United States, where they have, under the Obama administration that Mr. Biden participated in, where they encouraged children by themselves, without parents, without family members, to be sent to our borders, to be sent into America, because America will take care of them, because we're kind and generous people. And adds to our burden and our problems. And Mr. Biden is okay with that. That by opening our borders, by not providing that wall, which has reduced some of the inflow of illegal aliens, rather than continuing to strengthen our borders, which is also a national security issue, he is more than willing to encourage more illegal immigration and to have more parents send their children to the nation by themselves to endanger the lives of those children and to create more of the sexual trafficking that has been severely reduced under the Trump administration. Something he did not get a lot of credit for, but is a fact. So we will see more child trafficking because we have less border walls. And our border is open. Is that immoral? I think so. Anything that increases sex trafficking and child trafficking in America is immoral. And that is a problem for our nation and for the world and for the individual victims that are suffering from it. And to not understand that and to not deal with that, not to anticipate that, is a problem. Further, let's continue. Looking at, again, the New York Times, their morning edition, January 21st, and while there is many things here, like the World Health Organization, again, an organization that supported the lies by China that helped to spread the Wuhan virus, the coronavirus, the COVID-19 virus around the world and cause millions to die. Besides the climate change, as we've been just discussing, there is also inequality and racism. Biden has also sought to undo several of Trump's anti-immigration policies. Among those, refocusing deportation efforts on those undocumented immigrants, which would be an illegal alien, who have committed crimes in the United States. Quote, Trump, on the other hand, decided that anyone in the country illegally should be arrested and deported, end quote. Miriam Jordan, who covers immigration for The Times, said. Think about that sentence. Biden wants to focus on illegal aliens. By the way, the undocumented, they're not immigrants. They were not asked to come in. They're not legally migrating to the United States. They are illegally entering the country. They are illegal aliens, not undocumented migrants. The documentation they are missing is any legal reason for being in the United States and any legal documentation to allow them to be in the United States. So that is a crime. And while Biden wants to focus on those who have committed a crime, stop for a second. The first crime is you entered the United States against the law. You are illegally in the United States. That's why the legal term is illegal alien. You are a criminal for entering the nation without the right to do so. That is the first crime. He wants to ignore that crime to focus on other crimes that have been made by these individuals. Let us understand this. So you are picking and choosing which laws to enforce. If you are picking and choosing laws, then laws don't exist. That is an authoritarian viewpoint, not a democratic viewpoint of law. And that means that if you can pick and choose which laws to enforce, then any law can be ignored. Therefore, there are no laws. Do you see the problem here? And the Times goes through great effort to try and turn this around. As we see Miriam saying that, rather than focusing on people who are illegal aliens, arresting them and deporting them as the law states. That is the law of the United States. If you are an illegal alien, you will be arrested and deported. That is the law. And Trump is a bad guy for following the law, and Biden is a good guy for selecting which law he wants to follow and not follow. So therefore, if an illegal alien were to break into your house, if someone breaks into your house and decides they will live there, then unless they did some other crime, like rape you in that house, then it's okay. This is the metaphor that has been put before us. This is the example. If someone breaks into your home, you cannot, that's not a crime that will be enforced. But if they do a further crime, like kill someone in that house, like burn down the house, like sexually assault someone in that house, then those crimes, not the initial crime of breaking in and breaking and entering, that is not the crime that will ever be addressed. Only if they did an additional crime. Rather than enforcing the law in the first place that they illegally broke in and they illegally entered and are occupying your property. If you fix the first problem, which is illegally entering, then there is no second problem. Does that not make sense? And to not do that is immoral, potentially illegal, because it would be aiding and abetting a crime. Not that any president would ever be labeled with that, not that the United States government would ever admit that, but that's aiding and abetting a crime. You allow someone to break one law and they therefore break another law. You allowed this to happen. You are liable for their actions and the crimes they commit. So what does the Supreme Court have to say about all this? See, when I keep saying that this is something that these executive orders, immoral, illegal, ineffective, just wrong, let's understand where some of the determination, besides what I've said so far, I'm going to the Supreme Court's decision on DACA. And in the conclusion, they state, the Supreme Court has stated, we address only whether the agency complied with procedural requirements that it provide a reasoned explanation for its action. Here, the agency, speaking about when the government failed to consider the conspicuous issues of whether to retain forbearance and what, if anything, to do about the hardship, this DACA specifically, this hardship to DACA recipients. Now, I want to stop. That dual failure raises doubts about whether the agency, the government, appreciated the scope of its discretion or exercised that discretion in a reasonable manner. The appropriate recourse is therefore to remand to DHS so that it may consider the problem. So basically, in more common English, the Supreme Court said that President Trump could not revoke the executive order on DACA because the government did not understand the ramifications of what it did and did not properly address that. Okay. And by the way, forbearance, for those who don't know, forbearance is patient self-control, restraint, and tolerance. So when we look at the executive orders from Biden to reverse and revoke what President Trump did, we have to ask the question, is there a reasoned explanation? Well, the explanations we have received are, it's political. The Keystone Pipeline is political. It's to remove the Keystone Pipeline, to stop it, is bad for international relations. It's bad for the economy. It's bad for unemployment. It helps the largest polluter of greenhouse gases in the world. It is just bad. So taking that into account, looking at that just as an example, we don't have a reasoned explanation. It doesn't address these concerns. It is a problem. And when the government failed to consider these obvious issues, was it being patient? Is it being restrained? Is this the United States government being restrained, intolerant, patient, and in self-control of this very critical issue? No. They're not considering the impact of how this is going to cause a hardship for American citizens in their jobs. It's not taking into account the hardship that's going to place on the United States economy. It's not taking into account the problem it's going to create for our neighbor in Canada, who has already expressed the problem and how it's a negative impact to them. So there's something that, according to the determination of the Supreme Court, I'm looking at their decision, that means that we shouldn't see this. It's not a legal determination, the executive order to revoke the permit for Keystone Pipeline. How about when we look at the benefits of reducing climate change? By determining whatever it is to determine the social cost, to place a global damage on the United States, to make us responsible for a cost of global damage of greenhouse gases that are coming from China and India. Is that reasonable for us to pay for and to be accountable for problems created in countries outside of the United States? No, that's not reasonable. Is it considering the issue of whether we're being tolerant? Is this patient? Is this a restrained response? No. We're jumping into to hell in a handbasket. And what about the hardship to the American citizens, the American economy, American businesses? Are they considering what this is going to do to any of them? No, they are saying that they are considering what's going to happen to the globe, except America isn't the problem for the globe. China and India are. And America is, at this moment and before, factually the biggest answer to fixing the problem already. We are already reducing greenhouse gases. We are already fixing the problem. We are already leading the globe in fixing the problem. So it is not something that is helping fix this problem for the globe. Again, that means that according to the Supreme Court, as I'm reading it, applying that same reasoning, there goes that executive order from Biden. How about the Muslim ban, which it is not a Muslim ban? That is a news media tagline, but that's not what the bill does. It does limit the number of people and countries that can have refugees in the United States because of reasons of lack of identification and the potential for national defense, possible endangerment of the American citizens. So to just remove that, not improving any of the underlying systems, I know there is a promise that we will try to identify these people, which is not always possible, and that we are going to allow these people to come in. We are going to just let them in because they're from the Middle East, because they're black, or they're Arabic. Okay. And is that responsible? Are we taking into account what about the hardship for the American citizens for any of those individuals let into the country without proper identification that may be members of cells of Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and those individuals commit crimes and seek to destroy the American government? Is that morally the best thing we can do? No, I don't think so. Why add to the threat? Do we need to do this? No. Is it a requirement? No. Have we seen in other parts of the world where this has been done? Has it shown itself to be a problem that has negatively impacted the economies of other parts of the world and to affect people in the countries in other parts of the world negatively? Has it caused more crime, more violence, more sexual assaults? The answer to that is yes. So in doing this, are we creating a hardship for American citizens? Potentially, yes. Are we creating an environment that's going to make it better for us to isolate these individuals? No. So again, according to the Supreme Court, in the way they decided that DACA could not be revoked by President Trump, we're looking at Biden not being able to revoke because of the same reasoning. There is no one else in the media who will do this analysis, that will consider this and look at this. Now, you don't have to agree with us. That's not what we're asking you to do. We are presenting the case and an argument. We are presenting an option that, according to the YouGov polling, many Americans, often half or more of the nation, agrees with. That there are problems here and that Biden is not helping America. He is helping his political position, but he is not helping America, and that he has endangered the American citizens. Now, if you disagree, if you think that we have misunderstood these executive orders, if there is a greater benefit than what we have been able to identify that overlooks and supersedes the problems that we've identified, please, we'd love to hear about that. If you think this is how this unifies America, please explain to us how. We look forward to hearing that discussion because we believe in the First Amendment and we want to understand and learn, and maybe we got it wrong. But if you do believe we've gotten it right, if you have enjoyed us going over doing this analysis, please like and share, and most of all, subscribe, which will allow us to let other people see this and to engage in their First Amendment right to say what they think about this, something that's going to affect us all throughout the world, but especially in the United States. And most of all, we hope to see you on Sunday at 2:30 Eastern Standard Time on our live stream, where we will discuss this and many other issues affecting America. Until that time, I thank you, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.